Today we are thrilled to welcome Jeremy Luberts, a second generation law enforcement officer who spent nearly 3 decades with the Morrison County Sheriff's Office. He's here to share his experiences and insights from his new book about the Byron Smith murder case. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thanks for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. First question I have to ask. Can you tell us something the world cannot find out about Google about you? I cannot talk today. I don't know what it is. I was doing this pre-show. Something that if they were looking on Google right this minute, that they can't find out about you.
I have an identical twin brother. His name is Jamie.
Oh, wow.
And
Nice.
yeah, throughout the years, we were involved in a twin study with the University of Minnesota.
Sweet.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
So a twin study. So what did that entail?
Well, some of the tests were kind of weird. I mean, at least I thought they were. So the last one I did, my brother and I, we were called down to the university. They wanted to do a test, and they had they looked like shower caps with electrical probes all over the top of it.
No way.
And they squirt. Oh yeah, they squirt
like
this
in the movie.
clear jelly in there, and then they take it and then they put it on your head. I mean, yeah, and then they sit you down in this dark room in front of this TV monitor, and then they show you pictures. Yeah, and so they're flashing pictures of things. You see a nice scene, I suppose they're looking for brain activity, to see what your brain's thinking or taking in. So I see a nice scene. I see a dog, I see a cat, or I see a wilderness, something like that. Then all of a sudden I see a bad accident scene where somebody's killed or something like that. That never bothered me. Being a deputy, I see that stuff all the time,
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden, more nice scenes and then a flash picture of a naked girl. Whoa. Now, I have to admit, that caught my attention.
I bet it did. Question is, did it catch your brother's attention too?
I'm
He said
sure.
the same thing. So might have been a spike in brain activity on that part. Maybe that's what they're looking for. I don't know.
That's
All right,
hilarious.
Jeremy. So you were born and raised in Little Falls, Minnesota, small town in the central Minnesota. How did growing up in a small town shape your perspective on law enforcement? How did it influence your decision to follow in your father's footsteps? Because you said you were second generation.
Sweet.
I am, and actually, I'm following in my uncle's footsteps. My uncle was the sheriff of Morrison County, where I work and live.
Oh wow.
For years, for years when I was a kid. So then I followed in his footsteps, all of my uncles. He was an investigator also, and I became the lead investigator of my department, Morrison County Sheriff's Office, and was the lead investigator for 12 years.
Oh, wow.
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 Mm-hmm.
So what's it like being in a small town like that? I mean, it seems like, I live in Washington, D.C. area. I mean, I've gone through small towns, but what is it like, that small town?
It's awesome, really. I mean, they say in a small town, everybody knows everybody, So,
Yeah.
I mean, is that
it
true?
was better for,
Like family.
yeah, it is true. It
Okay.
is. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people because there isn't hundreds of thousands of people in one area. We have 35,000 people that roughly live in my county, in Morrison County. And then our biggest city is Little Falls, and you got 8,300 people living in Little Falls. So
8,300.
it's a pretty rural area, and but a big area to cover, and it's a lot of woods, a lot of farmland.
Beautiful.
So beautiful, really, a lot of lakes. Everything. Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming
And
small towns like
one
that.
other thing, yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I assume small towns like that don't often get major murder cases. And that's what your book is about. The Byron Smith case, it involves a retired homeowner who sets a trap for burglars, resulting in the death of 2 teenagers, right? And it's stirred up this national debate over this castle doctrine law. So can you share how it impacted you personally? Tell us a little bit about the story and what it was like getting a case like this in such a small town.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've investigated multiple different murder cases, but nothing like this. So it's something that just doesn't happen in our area. It happened in November of 2012. I got called to it, being the lead investigator. It was in the county, just out of the city limits. Um, and it was a case that two teenagers, you had 17-year-old Nicholas Brady and his cousin, 18-year-old Haley Kiefer, that broke into Byron Smith's home. Byron was retired, and what happened was Byron had been broken in before, back in October. My identical twin brother, Deputy Jamie Luberts, who worked for the same department as I do, actually took that call and investigated that burglary case. Well, me being one of the lead investigators at the department, Jamie told me about the case, and we were trying to develop a suspect in the case. We haven't developed one yet. Well, Byron, in the meantime, was really upset. He was kind of a recluse, lived alone in his home that he grew up in. Had lived there for a little while with his mom. His mom passed away, and then he, of course, was living there by himself, never married. And what I found out with Byron is he had a hard time when he felt that if anybody ever ganged up on him or picked on him or something like that, he was revengeful. He wanted to get his revenge.
Goodness.
And that's what happened in this case. So he had set a trap to catch on Thanksgiving Day, November 2012. He set a trap, try to catch who's ever breaking into his house. How did he set this trap? And I had to discover this. He parked his vehicle away, a block away from his house on a dead end cul-de-sac. And then he walked back to his house. He had a chair set up downstairs in his basement at the bottom of the steps. There were bookshelves, and in between he had this chair so nobody could see him. And he sat there with a bottle of water, energy bars, and a book. And he was sitting there waiting to see if anybody broke in. He removed the light bulbs from the light fixture so that nobody could see him sitting in this chair.
Wow.
The only way somebody would see him is if they walked down the steps. So, So what happened then when Nick came along and actually did break into his house, was walking down the stairs. Byron shot him. Nick tumbled to the bottom of the steps. He's hurt. He's wounded. Nick did not have any weapons on him. He was looking to, burglarize Byron's house, take what he could, steal what he could. And but Byron, because this happened before, he was mad. He wanted his revenge on this. He shot the guy who's wounded at the bottom of the steps. Didn't have a weapon. At that point, Byron could have called law enforcement and reported this for help, right? He doesn't. Right. What he does is he goes up and he executes him. He shoots Nick again in the head, killing him. Well, he had a tarp nearby. This is a story that Byron's told me after I made contact with him.
So Byron told you this story.
Yeah, I got a full confession from him, and that is hard to do. And in any case, because of the way I treated him from the very beginning. Anytime I deal with somebody, I kill them with kindness, and I treat everybody I deal with kindness, understanding, and respect. It's the way I've always treated anybody in my career. Yes, and it pays off in the end. I like to kill people with kindness because that's the way I would want to be treated if I was, if I was in their shoes. So I always paid people that respect, and it's always came back to pay me back in full. How? Because even when people I've arrested would get out of jail or prison or anything like that, they'd see me when I'm out grocery shopping. They'd come up. They make it a point to come up and talk to me and tell me how they're turning their life around. I tell you, I loved hearing that. It was a great, thing to hear because that's my passion in life, was to help people. That's what I love to do, and that's why I became a cop to begin with. Wow. So getting back to the case, so then Byron. After he shoots and kills Nick, he wraps him in a body in a tarp, drags him off to this back office room that he has in the basement. 11 minutes later, Haley Kiefer, his cousin, comes into the house. She's looking for Nick. She was with him, and she walks to the top of the stairs. She's calling for Nick, but there's no answer. She walks down the stairs, and Byron shoots her. She falls. She tumbles to the bottom of the steps. She's laying there wounded. Byron goes to finish her off, and the gun jams. There's a click, and the gun jams. And he goes, I want her dead. So he had a revolver at his side. He pulls the gun out and shoots her multiple times in the chest and in the face. He actually shot her in the eye.
Oh my
and then
goodness.
He takes her body, drags her back, and puts her body next to Nick's in this back office room on the car. The reason he did that, because he told me, is he didn't want any blood. He didn't want all this blood soaking into his carpet at the bottom of the step.
Oh my
That's why he
God.
did that. That's why he wrapped the body in the carpet
Wow.
and moved him out. Yeah, and
Wow.
then, but Haley's still breathing. She's still alive. He tells me. So he tells me I can't stand. He tells me I can't stand to see any animals or humans suffer. So he puts the gun underneath her chin and he goes, I gave her a good, clean finishing shot and kills her and finishes her off. I got that information from him in his statement. Well, and one of the biggest, and one of the biggest pieces of evidence we found in this case, and this is something he did not disclose me. So Byron worked for the Department of Homeland Security,
Really?
putting security systems in embassies. And he did this a lot overseas, you know? And
Wow.
yeah, so he was like he set up surveillance cameras and all this stuff. He had surveillance cameras set up at his house, 4 cameras, but they were all outside. He had nothing inside. But we got good evidence from them. It was very revealing. You could see what Byron did, parking his truck away from his house, and you can see the kids walking up to the house. And incidentally, it only took an hour. When he was setting his trap, he parked his truck away and walked back. It only took an hour until Nick and Haley
for that
came
to
to the
occur.
house.
And he knew these kids before, right?
He knew Nick. And how did he didn't know Haley, but he knew Nick.
Okay.
Because Nick had done lawn work for him.
Okay.
He had actually done some lawn cleaning and stuff like that at his house. Well, see, that's how Nick knew about how to break into Byron's
Get
place.
there.
And
I see.
gave him ideas of what he had at the house. Oh, yeah.
Sneaky.
And,
Yeah.
So I ended up arresting Byron in this case. He was charged for 2 counts of first-degree murder. Ultimately, there was a trial. And during this trial, of course, the Castle Doctrine law came into play. The
Castle
news
Doctrine?
media, yes, the news media hyped up the Castle Doctrine like you wouldn't believe. And what that did is it caused people. I had half my community grateful for the job I did. I had the other half mad at me because they thought Byron was innocent, that he had the right to shoot and kill these people because they broke into his house.
Can you quickly explain the Castle Doctrine and what that is?
Yes. So the Castle Doctrine is very similar to like a stand your ground type law. Minnesota does not have the Castle Doctrine law, but we adopted the same principle. So what the Castle Doctrine law basically is that people are the king of their castle, right? You have the right to defend yourself in your home, and you have the right to use deadly force.
Which makes
Problem
sense.
is, with Minnesota law, they take it a step further and they say it has to the amount of force used has to be reasonable.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
that makes sense to me.
Yes, and this is where the trouble came in with what Byron did. The amount of force he used was not
unreasonable
because of the fact that we proved that he had set up. I was able to prove he set up
premeditated.
It was all premeditated.
Yeah.
It was the holy grail piece of evidence was a digital recorder he had sitting in a bookshelf above his reading chair that he didn't tell us about, but I found it during the search warrant. And it copied everything. You can hear the whole incident, the shooting.
Oh my goodness.
You can hear the break-in. You can hear, and Byron was monologuing before the break-in. He was talking about, he was talking about calling his brother and saying, "Hey, something happened here. I need you to come here, park away from the residence, walk to the house this way." Then he was talking about practicing calling an attorney.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm looking for an attorney. I need help with something. Well, then you hear the break-in and that happened. And then, of course, the shooting and everything.
Wow.
Well, when he told me in his statement that I took from him, this was really interesting. He said that when Haley was laying wounded at the bottom of the stairs and I went to shoot her and my gun jammed, she laughed at me. Well, that was a red button for me, he goes. And he goes, I just took my gun and shot her and shot her. When you listen to the actual audio, she didn't laugh. There's no laughing. She's in pain and she's pleading with him. She's saying, "Oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry." That's what she's saying. And he tells me she's laughing at him. And it's this case also because of the Castle Doctrine law made people, especially gun rights owners, people permit to carry holders with firearms, made them very upset because everybody thought that law enforcement or the government was trying to take away people's rights to carry firearms or to possess them.
No.
And that is not the case in this matter at all. But people wanted to make it about that. What this case was about was one bad decision by one person, one individual person, Byron Smith. It was the evil choice that he made. It was not about taking people's guns away from them or owning and possessing them or carrying them. Nothing to do with that. I personally believe that people should have the right to own guns and carry guns as long as it's all done legal.
Agreed.
Right. So
there's some comments online real quick that I want to kind of get in here. So we've got from Jacqueline Robinson says, "Wait, I just saw this on Dateline."
Yes, I was on Dateline NBC, and I was also on Crime Watch Daily regarding this show.
Oh wow, that's awesome!
Wow.
And this is another question similar to the next question I was going to ask. But how do you in your book you mentioned that the Smith case? You mentioned in your bio that the Smith case rather altered your life. Can you share more about that? And Olivia asked, how do you decompress, get this out of your mind and spirit, or you like a priest almost hearing a story? How do you decompress?
Very good question, Olivia. Was it Olivia you said?
Yes.
Very good question. Yeah. And the answer is you never can get this out of your mind. I will live with this for the rest of my life. Seeing those mutilated teens riddled with holes shot up in Byron's basement, I will never forget. It'll be with you for the rest of your life. How I deal with this stuff is my faith. I have a strong faith. I believe in God and Jesus Christ, and it's my faith that gets me by. And I also have a very positive attitude, a very positive outlook in life. It's just, I always strive to be a good person, and that's what gets me by, and always has, and always will. Yeah.
I've got another comment from Tracy Gore says, I'm Canadian. From Tracy Gore, she says, I'm Canadian, strongly against people owning guns for this exact reason. Rob?
Man, everyone's just touching base on the questions that I've prepared. You're so eloquent. Jeremy, thank you so much for being so open and transparent about your story and your journey. Now,
absolutely.
I'm very curious what you would like for people to learn from your book, not so much in the context of learning about the case, but more along the vein of how we should function as a society.
And on top of that, I'd like to know what makes your book different than, say, for example, just reading about the news stories online. What makes your book different?
Right. The biggest thing about mine is I go into complete detail of the investigation into this case, and it outlines everything. I even have the 3 individual statements I took from Byron Smith are outlined in my book. So the reader will be able to actually read through and put theirself in my shoes to see what Byron was actually telling me in person. Yes. And then I also have actual stuff in there regarding from the grand jury hearing. I have questions that were asked to me from the grand jury members, and you'll be able to see all that. And then also, it's very in depth. I go into details too of what law enforcement officers do and during these investigations and why we do it. I explain the process, and it'll be very interesting to the reader to learn. A lot of people have questions like I even during their interviews, I interview juveniles during this case. Well, some people think that we can't,
like friends of the victims.
Yes, that's exactly right. Okay. So some people think that we can't interview juveniles without the parents present or the parents' consent. Right? You hear that a lot. I hear it a lot. Well, that's absolutely not true. I can interview. Law enforcement can interview juveniles. At least in Minnesota, we can without the parents' consent. Why is that? Because sometimes the parents are the suspects in the matter. So why am I going to go to the suspect to try to get consent to speak, with the juvenile when they're the victim or vice versa or the suspect? Exactly. Yeah. But we always use the Miranda warning when we talk with anybody. Miranda warning became a big issue in this case because people need to know what they're doing. And if I had failed to ever give my legal, somebody their legal rights, the case could have been thrown out. But I was very adamant and very good about making sure Byron knew his rights the whole time he talked to me. In fact, the third statement, I took 3 separate statements from him. And the third statement I took from it, he had talked to his attorney while in jail. And I still, because of the way I treated him, like I told you before, I treat everybody with kindness and respect. Because of that, I was able to build up a great rapport with him to get beyond the Miranda warning, so I could talk to him and get what I needed.
Oh, okay, nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there's an art form to interviewing people, and it's a learned art form that investigators get. Oh yeah. How this case, going real quick, how this case affected my life. My community started because half the community thought that Byron was innocent, half thought that he was guilty. They started a coalition called the Byron Smith Coalition to raise funds for his defense. They had the meeting at the VFW all the time in Little Falls. Well, that group, every time they get done, or not every time, but a lot of times when they get done with their meeting, there would be a parade of cars past my residence and my brother's residence in town. I was married at the time. My wife was getting harassed because of I was the arresting officer in the case. After the case was done, 2 years later, in April of 2014, Byron was convicted for 2 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. The harassment continued even on after that, even after he was convicted, because they were the coalition was still trying to raise money for his defense, for his appeal.
Wow.
My wife, can you imagine what a wife would have to go through with all this harassment going on? She was getting harassed constantly too. It was creepy. We had people driving by our house all the time. She couldn't take it anymore. Being the wife of an investigator, she had no idea what it was going to be like. 3 months after the trial was done, I ended up getting divorced. Because she just couldn't handle the stress anymore. And I couldn't. I don't blame her. I couldn't blame her. I mean, I felt so sorry for my wife, and I signed on for that. That's the
as
career
a police
choice.
officer.
That's what I chose to do. It was my career, but she didn't. She didn't sign on for that, and she couldn't take it anymore. And at the end, Nick and Haley lost their lives. They were shot and killed. They lost their lives. Byron lost his freedom, and I lost my family. That's how this case affected me. And it's all outlined in my book, too, regarding that matter. No.
Sorry, Jeremy.
Oh, Jeremy.
Yanni.
Thank you for being so honest.
Yeah.
Now that you're retired, what kind of prompted you to want to share your knowledge and want to share your experiences with others? Besides the fact that this, impacted your entire life, like I said, what prompted you to want to share the knowledge and experience?
Thank you for asking that. It is an excellent question. The reason I want people to know about this, the reason I wrote the book, and I started this book back in 2014. I just completed it this year because I took my time on it. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's the reason why I finally finished it. It's therapeutic. I want to get the message out to people. It is. It's therapeutic that I can talk about it to help. It's helping me heal by getting the word out. So, and I want people to know the truth, because there were a lot of false things people were saying too about this case, and there's a lot of people that still think Byron was innocent. And people can have their opinions. I'm good with that. But at least hear the whole story. And my book will tell you the whole story and all the facts. And then make your opinion. And whatever it is, so be it. But you'll see why I did what I did. People blame me in this case because I'm the one that was the lead investigator. It's not fair. And that's what I want people to know. Don't blame. How can you blame me? I wasn't on the jury.
Right.
I wasn't on the 12 panel jury. I was not one of the jury members sitting on that case to convict him. That wasn't me. I was not a judge who sentenced him to life in prison for the rest of his life. I wasn't that judge. I wasn't the prosecuting attorney who charged Byron. I was the fact gatherer in the case. That was my job. So why are people blaming me?
Yeah. Jacqueline Robinson says, I remember how shocked Byron's supporters were. I'm curious, do you think that he was justified in protecting his home? Obviously, not with the level of violence that he chose, but do you think he was justified in protecting his home from these intruders?
Yes, I absolutely think he was justified in protecting his home. In my opinion, Byron had every right to shoot these teenagers that broke into his house. He had the right to do that. By law, he had the right to do that. Where he took it too far is you do not have the right to execute people. Byron's dude, after he shot Nick, he's wounded at the bottom of the stairs. Clearly, is no longer a threat. By Minnesota law, this is what I believe, he should have rendered aid and called law enforcement immediately. Byron never called law enforcement in this whole case. He never called us. He sat on the bodies for 24 hours. How we found out about this the next day after it happened was that he called his neighbor, his friend, William Anderson, asking for him to help him find an attorney. Byron never called law enforcement. William Anderson, his neighbor, called him.
So who was the first person on the scene? Was that you?
I was the first person on the scene. I'm the one that made contact with Byron, investigated the whole matter, found the bodies in the basement, and did the statements from the whole investigation. I was involved in the whole investigation. And one thing I want to point out, I dedicated my book to Washington County Attorney Pete Orpett, a wonderful man. Pete Orpett came and prosecuted this case for Morrison County because the Attorney General's office refused to help us on the case. And why? Because we feel that it was because it was too political, because of the Castle Doctrine law. They didn't want to get involved at the time. That's what we felt. And so Washington County Attorney Pete Orpett stepped up and came in to assist us, and he was a wonderful attorney and just a great guy. He passed away now, but he set his life aside to come and help the residents of Morrison County, and I am forever grateful. Just a wonderful man.
Yeah. I got to say, I mean, this is an exciting book, a story. The book sounds extremely interesting, especially from your perspective, because your perspective is a unique one. You know, being the first on the scene, being the one who did all the investigations. I mean, I'm really looking forward to reading that book and getting more and kind of taking your route to that
perspective. Yeah.
I'm excited for people to read it, and I hope everybody enjoys it. Yeah, my intent was to put people in my shoes, see what I had to go through, and see what I lived through, and get a feel for what it's like to be a law enforcement officer. Sometimes out there, it's hard. The movies, TV loves to portray investigators in particular as being all this cool job, and everything, and it's all fun and games and whatnot. And in real life, it's far from that. This is not everybody understands the impact such a case can have on an officer's life, and they're going to learn by reading my book what it was actually the impact it can have on law enforcement. Wow.
I have to commend you on maintaining such a positive, compassionate, loving attitude. It's truly remarkable. It's a testament to your character. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate that comment. It's my faith in God that does it for me. It really is, guys.
Yes.
All right, so that's all the time we have. Like I said, I appreciate your candor with us and sharing your story. Please let people know where they can find you and find your book, and give us any final words or thoughts that you might have.
Sure. So my book will be coming out on Amazon in September of this year, 2023.
September.
And you can also find me on my Facebook page. All you have to do is type in Murder on Elm Street, a true life story. And otherwise, you can email me at murderonelmstreet@gmail.com for any questions.
Yep, and you'll find that link in our description, so go ahead and check out Jeremy. Well, thank you again, Jeremy, for joining us. We really do appreciate you. It's a fantastic story, and your story is fantastic. I mean, it's so interesting, and I do feel for you and all you've been through with this case.
Oh, thank you, guys. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. All right.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.